Welcome to the Contractor Success Forum. Today we are talking about cash flow and discussing getting paid the easy way. Here on the Contractor Success Forum, our mission is to provide game-changing financial education for contractors to help you be more profitable, grow, and succeed in your business. And who's here to help us do that? As usual, Stephen Brown with McDaniel Whitley Bonding and Insurance Agency. I'm Wade Carpenter with Carpenter & Company CPAs, and we are privileged to have back with us our special guest, Alex Barthet of the Barthet Law Firm. He was a guest over 40 episodes ago now. It's hard to believe. But Alex, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Thanks, Wade and Stephen. My name is Alex Barthet. I am a board certified construction lawyer here in the state of Florida. I manage a team of about 20 people, and all we do is help contractors, subcontractors, and suppliers with their contracts and getting paid. That's what we do every day.
Getting paid. That's the title of this thing. Getting paid. What a nightmare.
Oh
So,
my goodness.
yeah,
I could tell you some stories. I guess I will be telling you some stories about the problems that we see our clients get into. And one of the things I'm sure we're going to get into is a fair amount of them are problems that could have been avoided. Some of them are
right.
unavoidable, but a fair number of them, if you look back at them, you could realize, wow, had they only done this a little differently, we probably wouldn't be in this situation.
That's right. And listeners, we were talking about this before the show started. And that is exactly right. Clear communication from the get go. That's a phrase that we use in my family around here. But getting started on the right foot is another way of phrasing that, right?
Yeah, and it all starts with managing expectations in your written contract. It's got to be step number one.
Okay.
Easiest way to get paid is to have a good contract.
Okay, it starts with the contract, but the owner gives you the contract and you're just expected to sign it. And if you sign it without any changes or having your attorney look it over, then you agree to those terms and conditions. So if you've already signed it and you've agreed to it, then you got to understand what the rules are. And the rules are spelled out in the contract, right, Alec?
It's funny, clients call me and they say, this happened and that happened and this other thing happened. What should I do, Alex? And I say, well, I need you to send me the contract. No, but this happened and that happened. And so what should I do? I said, I need to look at the contract, because until I look at the contract, I don't know how to answer the question, because that's the rule book. So what did you agree to before you started this job? That's what we're going to have to look at and see what it says. And if someone's handing you a contract, you can almost guarantee that it's good for them and not good for you. So you need to read it and understand it and have an expert with expertise in construction contracts give you some advice.
Okay, so not only just having the contract that sets all the terms and conditions, is we also have the element of billing according to contract. What other elements do we have, Wade, from your
Well,
standpoint?
I know you said something about making people abide by the terms of the contract, but Alex, can you just kind of kick around a couple of things on the contract terms that I think you might be able to give us some unique insights on and things you
Sure.
should do to start with?
So a common refrain I hear from clients is, all right, Alex, I got this contract. I've been told that I'm going to be the one that's going to get it. They've handed me this 60-page document. I don't really want to make a lot of changes. I really want this job. So what are the top one, two, or three changes you would make to this agreement? Now, in reality, I'd like to make about 50 changes, some big, some small. But if pigeonholed, I usually tell clients, okay, number one is the right to stop work. If you are not getting paid, you need to have the unequivocal right to stop work. Because if not, you're going to have to keep paying your payroll, keep incurring costs with material suppliers, and you may not be getting paid. And people think, well, wait a second, Alex, that doesn't make any sense. Of course, if I'm not getting paid, I have the right to stop work. And then I open up the contract to page 37, paragraph 9.6, and it says, even if we're in a dispute, even if I'm not paying you, you have to keep working. It says it right there. So number one, change that provision. Put in a specific provision that says, if I'm not getting paid within 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, some number of days, that you have the right to stop working. That's definitely number one. I'm guessing you guys see that affecting cash flow for a lot of businesses.
Yeah,
Sure, and
absolutely.
on public jobs and federal jobs, guys, you've got to understand every detail of that contract before you bid on it. Because if you bid on it and there are other bidders, then you're saying, I agree to all of the terms and provisions of this contract. You
I know
can't.
there's several other things we wanted to hit on this episode, but can you throw out another couple of quick ones on the contract? You said
Sure.
three.
So, yeah, so having the right to stop work is definitely number one. Number two would be increasing the notice and opportunity to cure on a default or a claim. So typically we see these contracts that say, I can put you on notice of default and or terminate you in 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours. And invariably, when are you getting that notice? You're getting it at 5 o'clock on Friday on a long weekend, right? And you're like, well, geez, what am I going to do with that? So typically we recommend that you change it to 7 days, that it's not just the right for them to default you, but they have to give you written notice and opportunity to cure. And then this is the secret provision you can add. And it's not just the right to cure, it's the right to commence the cure. And the important distinction there is that you're not likely going to fix whatever problem they give you in whatever notice period you have. So if you have a problem and they tell you, okay, you've got 7 days to fix it, well, it may take you 2 weeks to get the part. So you're never going to be able to do it. So what you want to do is you want to say that in that notice period, you're going to show them that you've commenced the cure and that you're diligently proceeding with the cure. And then that should prevent the default. So if it takes 2 weeks to get a part, but you can show them that you ordered it on day 2 and that you've got your men out there and nothing has stopped, that'll prevent you from being defaulted and terminated. So in my opinion, that's number two. Slow down the ability for the contractor or owner to default and terminate you.
Okay.
And
Amen to
then,
that. Default triggers all the language of your general indemnity agreement that you sign with the bonding company. So if you're going to stop work on a bonded project, please let your bond agent know.
oh, for sure, bonding companies hate surprises.
Mhm. But
They'd
if you
rather
know
hear it
ahead of
from
time
you.
and we communicate it, then you'd be surprised at the help that you can get.
Yeah, and maybe even avoid a default or termination.
That's right. Which is
Um,
everything, guys.
Yep.
You default on a bonded contract, you can't get bonds.
yeah, usually your surety will put you on, unless you're got an incredible cash position. If you default on a bonded contract, your surety's probably not going to give you that next bid bond that you want when you have to bid that next job until
Mhm.
this default is resolved.
Right. Well, Alex, I know Stephen gave us notes beforehand, but he was talking about like the ability to hold somebody accountable for the terms of the contract. You're in the middle of the contract without suing or whatever. Can you talk about some of those things a contractor might be able to do?
Yeah. So part of the problem is dealing with people that may be unreasonable. And you sometimes don't find that out until you're one third into this project. So the contract is great. So having a good contract is critical. Documentation is absolutely important. Usually the person that has the better documentation is going to prevail on a claim or at closeout or in a lawsuit. But forcing people to abide by the contract is hard because anyone can just do anything. And what we see many times is that the person that has the money will sometimes use that money as leverage to do what they want, even if it is not in compliance with the law or in compliance with the contract. So sometimes if you're a sub on a job and they say, hey, we need you to sign this release, and you say, well, that's not required by the statute, that's not required by my contract, they say, well, then I guess you don't want to get your check. And how do you force them to do the right thing is challenging because you need that check. So one of the best ways that we have found is to properly vet the counterparty in your contract. I have clients call me on a pretty regular basis and they say, hey, Alex, tell me about so and so contractor. Tell me about so and so owner. And then they hang up with me after they hear it from me. And then they call their bonding agent. Then they call their CPA. They call their insurance agent. and they try to make informed decisions to only do business with people that have a good reputation. So the most successful clients that we have use folks like us as a resource beyond just the actual service we provide.
Right.
Amen to that. That's a great point. And also, when you have a situation where the owner is just being unscrupulous, and you've got the law on your side, you've got the contract, but you also have timing situations. You got to stop work on a project and then start it back up. There's a huge amount of cost involved there. Then you've got all these people on payroll, and you've got everything going. That's the last thing you want to do is stop work on the project. But in certain situations, you have to because you're incurring costs that you just are really not going to get paid for. And you'll get paid eventually through the legal system. But at the same time, if you're going to go into that situation, by all means, talk to us because all three of us have been through that so many times.
Yeah. Let's change direction a little bit because I know we were talking about a couple of other situations where I know I see this all the time. A contractor doesn't bill on time or they're not accurate or whatever. And so that can really affect cash flow and getting paid on time. So can can either of you speak to that for a little bit?
Billing on time, understanding what that contract says about your ability to bill and what's needed, what forms, what paperwork, what documentation you need to bill. And then our last podcast, Alex, we were talking about just simple things that a contractor didn't know that they could and should bill for. Oh, we've never done it that way. So that's not how we bill.
Again, it really goes back to the contract. Most contracts that we see say these are the list of things you need to give us in order for your bill to be considered complete. It's usually a detailed list. It also says the date on which you need to submit the bill, which is really important. And then number three, it usually says, and this is the kicker that you mentioned, Wade, if it's incomplete or you miss the date, then you're not billing till the next billing period.
Right.
Period.
So if the billing period's the 25th, bill it on the 20th and then communicate that they've agreed to your bill before the 25th. That way you don't have to wait 60 days to get paid.
Right.
Well, I guess the next one on the list too, which I think Stephen brought up, but I see this all the time, is project managers don't get. I know this is an accountant thing, but project managers don't get their bills into the accounting, so they don't get into that month's pay apps. So, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, pay your project manager like a sub paid as paid provision. That would do
Yeah.
it.
He can only come pick up his paycheck when he's done all his work by the 25th of the month.
I don't think that's practical, but you've got to ride herd on making sure that's done. I have a number of clients that have basically their title is project manager executive, and basically their job is riding herd over that paperwork being there on time. They're going to make your life miserable if you don't do it. It's going to come to the owner's attention that you're not doing it, and that's grounds for termination.
Yeah, it's a lot of work to get all of this paperwork together because a lot of it, even if you do all of your work on time, you've got subs and suppliers and you need their paperwork. And the controller at the supplier's office is on a 10-day vacation in Italy and they left on the 20th and they're coming back 10 days later and they're going to miss the billing period, right? What do you do? So yes, part of it is just being on it and being aware and having someone take control of that process.
Right. And if you're doing federal contracting work, you have to understand the rules are absolutely inflexible. Just know that going into, be an expert, ask tons of questions before the project starts. That's the way contracting specialists for the government want you to behave with them, is they want to make sure you know the rules.
Yeah, and there's two pieces of advice that I could give in that regard. Number one, if you're going to get into a new area, a new geographic area, a new line of business, a new type of construction, start small. Don't start with a really big contract in that area, number one. And number two, if you are going to do something larger, consider teaming up with somebody that has a great deal of experience in that area. Create a joint venture, enter into a teaming agreement, do something along the lines to bring someone with a level of expertise. We have a client now who it's a large shell contractor. They'll do 30 to 50 million dollars every year, and you think, wow, they must know what they're doing. And they entered into this one agreement for a $20 million shell package that instead of is generally lower in elevation and bigger, which is what they understand and know, that's what they've been doing for a long time. They went into a job, and this is a high rise. So contract size about the same, totally different experience. And they are suffering. They're going to lose a couple $1 million on this job because it was a totally new endeavor for them. New equipment, the people they had, you would think could do the same work, not quite as efficient doing a high rise versus other types of work. So they learned their lesson. It's a very expensive lesson.
Was it a bonded project, Alex?
It is. So I've had many conversations with my client's bonding company to keep them at ease because we've got liquidated damages. We had to deal with material price escalation, a lot of issues on this project. There was a prevailing wage component, a local workforce requirement, none of which the client was aware of. On top of all of that, you have again this new type of construction that he wasn't used to. So it was like a perfect storm for him.
Right. I mean, plugging myself, a good bond agent and a good company relationship wouldn't have just looked at that contractor's current numbers. They would have looked at the project itself and said, guys, we want to support you on this, but we got to understand this is high rise versus what you regularly do. These are the elements in the contract that we see. Is this a concern to you, and why? We a lot of times we talk contractors into not doing a job. We never say no, but just use logic in talking about it of doing a job. That's what we do, Alex.
Correct. Yeah. Had I been approached before the contract was signed, I probably would have raised some of those concerns. But unfortunately, in my business, most of the time I get the call when the building's on fire, not
Yeah.
before.
All right. That's a key point to today's podcast. Use us, folks.
Yeah.
Use us before you sign the contract. Next thing we had on the list was making sure the owner has the funds set aside to pay you.
Yeah, I thought that led right into Alex talking about before you sign a contract. So Stephen and I were talking about this before the show about making sure that they can pay you. So can we talk about that for a minute?
On public jobs, it's not much of a concern, right? Unless the city that you're working for goes bankrupt or
Or they're depending on a grant.
that's true too.
They may
Yeah.
not even applied for that grant yet. So a simple question in the pre-bid, oh, okay, is this funded by a grant? Have you received the money from that grant yet? Oh, no, we need to get your bid and then we'll fill out the grant. Gosh, I'm sorry.
Those are good things to
That
know,
set
right?
me off.
On a private project, though, as the general contractor, one of the things, again, it's a pretty standard request. It's in the AIA contract, is as an example, verify funding. One of the changes that we make when we look at those contracts for the contractor. So the standard provision in an AIA is that you can verify funding prior to commencement of the project. We like to change it that we can verify funding at reasonable points in time during the course of the project. So we don't just limit it to, well, it looks like you've got this $100 million loan, everything must be fine. We want to be able to spot check during the course of the project if there are any concerns and say, okay, well, there's $70 million left of the construction work. How much is left in the construction loan? Let's check on that. Because for all the developer is using the money legitimately under the terms of the loan for things other than construction, only to find out that when you get to the end of the job, there may not be enough to finish it.
Mhm.
So having that right to occasionally check on the status of funding is important. On smaller construction, though, to some degree, we find that you have to rely on your lien rights or as a sub rights against a payment bond, because there's just not that much information that's available to you. And if you sign a contract that says pay when paid, so if I'm a sub and I sign a pay when paid contract, well, then who do I check the credit of? It's not the contractor. It's got to be back at the owner. But I don't have that right that the contractor does to check to see if the owner has funding.
If it's a bonded project, as a sub, you should get a copy of the general contractor's bond before you sign your contract. That's one recourse. And also, like you were mentioned, checking along the way, you've got change orders. Do you have the money set aside for that? And if it's a private job too, at least in the beginning, if you're shy about verifying funding, you can always have your bond agent. Because before I do a job on a private project, I'm going to get a letter from the financing institution that the money's been set aside for the project. But that's such a great point, Alex, because things change during the course of the project, and the owner may or may not use that money to pay you.
Yeah, going back to the idea of using folks like us, one of the things I tell clients is you pay me to be the bad guy. So if you ever need cover, just blame me. Just it's really easy. You don't even have to ask my permission. I got this pain in the ass lawyer. He tells me I got to do this. So, I'm really sorry, but I got to do this. So I'm guessing you guys do the same thing. It's easy to blame the surety. I'd love to help you, but the surety needs X.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Yeah, we come in and the CPAs made me do this, so so we are the bad guy a lot of times. But yeah, I think you guys kind of went into the sub discussion. We've been talking a lot about general contractors, but Alex, what are some of the rules you've already been throwing out there? But getting paid from sub standpoint versus a general contractor.
So the number one issue that we see on the sub side is the pay when paid provision. So it's pretty significant in Florida. In some states, it's illegal. In most states, it is legal. In Florida, for example, it is legal, meaning most contracts we see have pay when paid provisions in them. And what does that mean? That means that if the contractor isn't paid by the owner, then they don't have to pay you. Legitimately, legally, they don't have to pay you. So that means you need to count on your payment from some other source, which is either a lien on the project, which almost always is going to be after the construction loan. So you're going to be second to the construction lender, subject to any equity that may be in the property. If the contractor has a bond, then that may be your recourse for payment, is to make a claim on that payment bond. We also deal with subcontractors or suppliers to subcontractors. And one of the things we tell them to look for, another pro tip here, is the subcontractor bonded? On these big jobs, it's not uncommon for, as an example, if I sell the rebar in the building, right? I'm a rebar supplier. And who am I selling to? I'm selling to the shell contractor. Most contractors are going to bond back their sub. So the shell contractor is going to have a bond. Now, that payment and performance bond's typically not in the public record, but the person that's willing to give you a copy of that bond real quick is the contractor. So we say to the rebar supplier, okay, call the contractor, get a copy of the subs bond, and make a claim against that sub bond. So there's ways to get paid, ways to secure your payment. Again, it's just managing expectations. Are you aware of these things, and this is what you're going to have to do to get paid?
Mm-hmm. Recently, the Surety and Fidelity Association of America put out a study saying that bonded projects were performed better. They were performed more efficiently. There were less headaches and situations from an owner that requires bonds. And that's a great point. As a general contractor, you bonding back your subs is a great way for you to assure that in a situation where someone is not getting paid as a subcontractor involved, that both of you are on the same foot. Because remember, surety companies have huge legal departments. You don't want to get them involved if you can help it. But in a situation where you have to stop work on a job and the owners threaten to put you in default and they're not paying you, communication's everything. Again, back to the same thing we started with at the beginning of the podcast, guys. Use your board of directors. That's us.
It makes a huge difference. And one of the things that I have seen as a trend over the last few years, I'm not sure if you all see the same thing, we see fewer contractors bonding projects as a whole. I'm talking private projects now,
Hmm.
and requiring most of the subs and especially the key subs to bond back with dual obligee bond writers, meaning the owner is looking to save some money rather than paying a point and then another point to the subs, get a solid contractor and then get the subs to bond. Are you seeing the same thing?
All the time.
So as a sub, what I tell my sub clients, they say, well, of course the job's bonded because I gave a bond. I said, well, that does just because you gave a bond doesn't mean that the GC's bonded. You need to verify that the GC's bonded.
Good point. Okay, well, I know we're running a little long. So, any last thoughts? This has been great information. There's a topic that we could talk for hours probably on. But, Alex, any last thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah. What I would end with is don't be, I get clients that say, well, look, I don't really want to send a notice to owner or a preliminary notice or a lien. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. And my answer to them is, well, which would you prefer? Be that person that no one is worried about, or do you want to get paid? Because you got to do those things that protect your company and help you get paid. And doing a notice to owner, sending a notice to owner, a claim of lien, a notice of non-payment, whatever it is that you need to do to get paid is something that should really be no question. We have a lot of clients that send notices, have liens on properties, have made bond claims, are in litigation with owners and contractors, and they are being asked to bid other projects by the same people. So it's not that just because you record a lien, you'll never get another piece of work. At least in the Florida market, and I think it's fair to say in many other markets, it's not automatically a black mark. People take you more seriously because they know that you're out there to protect your own interests. So I would encourage you to do that. Don't be ashamed to enforce your rights.
Great.
I love it.
All right.
Don't be ashamed to enforce your rights.
All right. Well, great advice, Alex. We really appreciate you coming. And I wanted to thank you all for listening to the Contractor Success Forum, wherever you might be tuning in. Find us on all major podcast platforms on the Contractor Success Forum.com or Carpenter CPA's YouTube channel for more information. And be sure to check out the show notes for more free resources, as well as we'll put Alex's contact information up there so you can contact him and get some great advice. If you haven't already, we sincerely appreciate it if you consider subscribing to the channel and ring that notification bell so you can follow each episode as we post it every week. We sincerely appreciate your support and comments in the journey, and we look forward to seeing you on our next show.